All right, what is going on, guys? So I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm pretty sick today. I'm a little bit congested. I didn't sleep too well last night. I was coughing and I'm stuffed up, and that's how my day is going. But that being said, I did want to make a video today and basically cover something. I kind of talked about it on another video before, but it's kind of like grounding mechanisms or ways that you can kind of get yourself out of a panic attack or an anxiety attack or an anxious mood, to say the least. I wanted to start this video off basically talking about like what is anxiety, and it's basically a trigger that goes off in your brain that is either fearful or excited about the future. And what I mean by that is, a couple years ago I had a friend of mine, he's a mentor essentially, and I was opening up to him about my anxiety. I was talking to him about it, and he asked me to describe the physical feeling of anxiety. And you know, I had kind of a similar answer to most people would. You know, you get, maybe your heart speeds up a bit, you can kind of feel it, and something inside just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel settled. You almost get like a pit in your stomach, and it feels like your stomach is almost eating itself. Like you get like this weird feeling, and you almost like cave in, like physically, posturally, you almost cave in, right? After I stated my list, he then asked me, well, what are the physical feelings of excitement? And I was a little bit confused by what he was asking me, but I went with it. So he basically said, you know, like, what's that feeling you get when you're a little kid, maybe 5-6 years old, and it's Christmas Eve and your parents are telling you got to go to sleep, otherwise Santa won't come. Essentially, your heart speeds up, it beats really fast, you're really excited, and you get a physical sensation in your stomach and your chest. You can't sleep, you can't eat, you're getting ready, and you physically kind of brace yourself. And it almost came to me at that point that it's almost, I wouldn't say the exact same, but it's super similar. The physical sensation or feeling of being excited or being anxious. And obviously it's to different degrees, and obviously it definitely impacts you in different ways. But in terms of physical sensations or feelings, it's very, very similar. And so what I've kind of drawn from that, or what I kind of think of that, is anytime that you're feeling anxious or excited, or even sometimes depressed, but depressed kind of deals a little bit more with the past rather than the future. But it seems that anytime you have those unmanageable emotions, it's because you're not living in the present time. You're not focusing on the present time. You're not living, you know, people always say living in the moment. You're not living in the moment, right? You're either living in the future, you're living in the past, you're regretting something or something coming up, or you're very excited for something coming up. But at the end of the day, you're not living in that moment and you're not being present. And so essentially I wanted to talk about today how you can get yourself to be a bit more present. Like I kind of brought up in the video in the past, the best way to go about this is going to be meditation. But for a lot of people that are very new to that idea, and even myself, it's really, really hard to get into the meditative state because A, you don't really know much about it, and B, it's really hard to get your mind to quiet down and to start to simmer down when you are getting pretty anxious. So I find it a lot easier to meditate when I'm already in like kind of a calmer mood or in a better mind state. But when I am in a panicked mood or an anxious mood or anything like that, it's kind of impossible for me, or it seems to be at least. And so like, what do you do at that point, right? You definitely need to calm down and not deal with things super emotionally, because sometimes that can get you into a load of trouble. So what can you kind of do to, I guess, simmer your mind down and let it kind of level out a little bit? You could think of it as like waters that have kind of got like a rock thrown in it. You know, they get that rippling effect, and it takes a while for a lot of us, especially me, to let that water settle out, right? And there's definitely things you can do to speed that process up, and you can kind of take that on and use it in your regular everyday life, right? So it's not even always just only applicable to panic attacks or anxiety attacks, you can start to translate this into other aspects of your life and start to use it in ways where, maybe when you get very angry or you get very happy, I don't know what it is, but maybe when you get like some sort of an emotional influx, then sometimes you can kind of react in different ways. And you always want to kind of obviously live emotionally, but also be able to take a look at the aspects of, why we make the decisions we make, or take a look at our behavioral patterns and see, are they always driven by emotion, or do we have some sort of logic or thought process going into this at all? You definitely want to be able to keep a level head at all times, right? And so there is some ways that we can kind of do that, and so I just wanted to share these tips with you guys to share like kind of what I do to help myself out. And so the number one thing that I try and recommend, especially if you've got like super crippling anxiety, is try not to put yourself in a lot of social situations where you're not going to have like an escape route or an escape plan like there and ready for you. And what I mean by that is like, you don't gotta be all Mission Impossible jumping through windows and stuff like that. If you're going somewhere where maybe you know that you're gonna face a little bit of adversity, or maybe it's someone that you don't like is gonna be there, or maybe it's a situation you're going to have to deal with, essentially what you're gonna always wanna do is set yourself up an escape route that's just there, just in case. It's just your contingency plan. And so for me, that means a lot of the time, I choose not to drink when I go out. And the reason for that is basically so that if I do feel uncomfortable or if I do feel anxious, then I can just get in my car and leave. I can just drive home, and if it gets too bad and I can't deal with it, then I can just leave, right? That's one thing I would recommend for someone, especially if they deal with crippling anxiety and they get panic attacks, especially in social situations, is be able to have an escape route, right? Which leads me to the second thing, which is basically like you're gonna have to get someone like a sidekick that A, you love, and B, you trust. Because when you tell someone like, hey, this is not going good and I need out, or I need X, Y, or Z, you guys have got to have that level of trust where they can see you're being dead serious about that and they need to take action, or maybe even help you take action right then and there and get you into a better spot. And so, yeah, it's going to be hard to find someone like that because you really do have to trust them and they have to trust you. And there's got to be a huge level of love there. So maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend, maybe it's, I don't know, it could even be one of your friend's parents. Anyone that you kind of love or trust and kind of understands the things that you deal with. If you don't have anybody like that yet, then that stresses the importance of opening up to people. Start letting people know about what you're going through or what you're dealing with so that you will build trust with someone, which can definitely be the hardest thing. Super difficult. So if you don't have anyone, just message me. Like do anything, right? Like get some sort of a base set up for you so that you feel a little bit more comfortable. Once you kind of started to execute on your escape plan or your escape route, you want to get to pretty much the most convenient, anxiety-free zone you could possibly get to. So if you're out, maybe you're downtown, or you're at a party, or you're at a meeting, or you're at work, maybe that's your car. Maybe you can get to your car, like where I am right now, right? And then that's going to be a quieter spot where not a lot of people can kind of see exactly what's going on, and you'll have a little bit more privacy, right? Best case scenario, it might even be your house, right? You could probably get home and get to your bedroom and get to essentially wherever you're going to feel safe or a little bit less anxious, right? Now, once you get to that place, you're going to want to start touching upon all of your senses. And so what I mean by that is you're going to start by breathing, right? You're going to sit down in a place where you feel a little bit less anxious, and you're going to start by breathing. And you're going to start as well to rate your anxiety level on a scale of 1 to 10. So it's a little bit more measurable, and you can kind of see like maybe it's a really bad anxiety attack and you're at like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. Or maybe it's just you felt a little bit uncomfortable and maybe you're a bit better now, and maybe you're just at like a 6 or 5 maybe out of 10. But you want to set some sort of a number to it, and that's going to help you a little bit later on. So you set a number, basically like, hey, I'm feeling 8 out of 10 right now. Like, this is bad news. We don't have much wiggle room. I'm not feeling good. So you're going to start breathing. And about like 3 or 4 breaths in, like as deep as you possibly can, what I try and do is I try and focus on the very first thing is, what can I smell? Because I'm breathing already, right? So, and I start to notice like the smells in the room. Maybe you're trying to think of like, what was the last thing you ate or drank, and you can kind of maybe taste that in your mouth a little bit still. And the next thing you're going to want to do, what I do, is I run my hands down my legs, or I try and feel around me. You want to start to feel the room around you and see, like, I don't know, maybe are you sitting on a chair? Is it a soft chair? Is it a firm chair? And just start to kind of get in touch with what's actually going on around you, right? Like where you are. This is where you're going to start to feel a little bit more grounded, right? And so you're going to take it a step further. Like, what's the temperature in the room? What are you wearing? What's your shirt made out of? Is it soft? Is it kind of a little bit more structure to it? How about your sweater? Is it like a really soft, like cotton? Is it a little good? Does it have a pattern in it that you could feel maybe? Then you start to move on to like, what can you see in the room, right? Is the floor carpet? Is it tiled? Does it have a pattern? And just start to notice everything around you in terms of how your senses connect with the world. And once you've kind of grounded yourself to the point where you can kind of see and taste and feel and smell and hear everything in the room, then you're going to start to think of 3 things that you really, really love, that you hold truly dear to your heart. And so maybe that's a parent. Maybe it's a pet. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a place that you go to. Maybe it's a song. Maybe it's just a type of music. I don't know. Maybe it's a topic in school. Maybe it's it could be anything. You're gonna want to think of at least, you could go for more, but at least 3 things that you truly love and hold dearly to yourself. And once you get a list of things that you love, you're gonna start to list why you love them. How does it make you feel? Why does it make you feel that? How do you kind of connect with it? And you're going to start to just think of all these things that really make you feel joy or love or connectiveness with the world, whatever it is. But just reminding yourself of all these things that you truly love and you're thankful for, you're grateful for. This is going to start to ground you even more. And then what you're going to do after you've done all of that is you're going to continue taking your deep breaths, and you're going to rate your anxiety again on a scale of 1 to 10. And now hopefully it's come down at that point. Maybe you went from like an 8 to a 4. Well, now you're sitting at a 4 out of 10, and that's a lot better, a hell of a lot better where you were in the first place. You've pretty much X'd out half of your anxieties. And at that point, you can kind of go on to either repeat this entire process, or maybe at that point you're feeling a little bit more comfortable and you're ready to actually leave the place that you're at right now. And maybe even go back to where you were, and you might actually be a little bit more comfortable facing whatever you were facing in the first place. These are just kind of my grounding tips. This is something that I use personally, honestly, a lot of the time. I would say every time I feel anxious or nervous or scared or anything like that. And so I really hope it helps people as well. If you have any other techniques that you use or anything like that, please definitely share them with me. Throw them in the comment section so that other people can kind of see them as well. But that's pretty much it. I really hope you guys can get through these next moments that you feel like you're a bit too anxious. And I'm gonna go rest and recover and try and get better as soon as I can. Thank you for watching.